Welcome everybody to the Magic Mushroom Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Traveling Psychonaut. On today's episode, we have Stinky Foot from the Discord server, The Magic Mushroom Speaks. We're going to talk a little bit about fruit selection for cloning. We're also going to talk a little bit about isolation and multispores and what Stinky Foot does to prep his grains for growing. We'll also talk a little bit about agar nutrition and how it plays a part in getting solid genetics. Now that we're waiting, we'll wait for him. Should be coming on here anytime now. I hope everybody's having a great weekend. I'm enjoying myself. I went to a bachelor party last night. And before we get started, I would just like to talk a little bit about how the magic fungi has helped me tremendously with addiction. I was a severe alcoholic since 16 or 17, and anytime there was alcohol around or a party, I would have to drink. I couldn't pass it up, I just had to have that bottle. So yesterday I went to a bachelor party. Yeah, bachelor party with my brother, and my brother's getting married April 1st. So I went there, and the first thing they did was offer me a drink, and I had no intentions on going there to drink. I didn't even feel like having a drink at all. So, yeah, the magic mushroom really helped me curb that addiction where every time I go somewhere, I have to drink, So all I really did was go there to support my brother, order some pizza, and have a glass of pop. I didn't have any urges. And I attribute that to the magic fungi. It's rewired my brain and rid me of all addiction. So for the magic mushroom and addictions, I'd say it's cured me 100%. So if you don't believe it, I'm living proof. With all that being said, let's welcome Stinky Foot to the show and let's get this show started. So how's it going, Stinky Foot?
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
Not bad. Just enjoying my weekend.
Oh yeah, happy Saturday.
Yeah, it's nice to be off work and just sit back and relax, So
Definitely.
why don't you let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and what got you into mycology, and maybe a little bit how the magic fungi helped you throughout the years. And
Yeah, for sure. When I first tried magic mushrooms or magic fungi, shrooms, I think I was 14, 15 years old. And wasn't something I've ever seen before. Gold caps, shimmering gold caps. I think it was like 30, $40 an eighth, or like $100 an ounce or something like that back then. And uh, we all just ate a few caps and sat there, and I didn't feel anything, and everyone was laughing and having a great time. So a week or so later, I tried it again with my friends. But this time I went for a walk, and it was hurricane season in the Northeast. I think it was bad hurricane came by, and we walked about 10, 20 blocks to the park where there's big trees and woods. And when I say it was pitch black and hurricane, it was my senses were overloaded. And when we were one flashlight, like a group of people, and you know when light hits fog and light hits like it kind of shimmers. It makes objects, it makes things look distorted like little clouds. So it kind of gave my brain this blank page to create something out of it. So I was seeing, I had a lot of visuals. I didn't have any visuals until I got into the woods and I started seeing this fog and the light of the flashlight shine through it. Just beautiful art, like Japanese demons and rivers and lakes and trees, and all for a split second. And my buddy said, "Hey, you all right?" And my first thing was, you're not seeing this. I'm doing this. This is my creation that I'm seeing. This is what's my brain's putting together. And all in all, I think for about an hour of trotting through the woods, we tried to make a teepee tent to stay dry, and brought we had like a blunt, or I think it was like a few blunts that got soaking wet, or a few joints that got soaking wet, and we couldn't even smoke. So we ended up just running back to this pavilion, drying off, and we're all just laughing. And the visuals were gone. The 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 need to seek shelter was gone. The rain stopped. We were under the pavilion, and I just remember feeling like this. I didn't have this the week beforehand, and I think it was they say a setting, state of mind. Like that does play a huge part in your first time experiencing magic mushrooms or most psychedelics. Your first time really help guide you into your future with them if you use them for what they're meant for. Use them for what you have meaning for. And yeah, that was. I mean, I didn't do them again for years later. I did them again after that time, but it was more for recreation and not for like the desire to seek what it would feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of. Did you watch Fantastic Fungi? You see that show? Have you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I just watched that for the second time yesterday, and that's like Paul Stamets. He was out in the woods there, and uh, it's it seems amazing those kind of trips when you're out there, out in the forest, and it's just a whole different world out there.
Yeah. I
So,
would. I didn't climb any trees or have any crazy breakthroughs or anything, but it was
well,
it
that's
was
good.
a revealing thing because I'm not a crazy creative drawer person, and I don't really doodle much. And some of my best friends are great artists. Fiance is an amazing artist, but I don't, and I've always wanted to. But that split second where I was looking into the fog, I created this artwork, this masterpiece, and it was effortless. It was just there, appearing and changing. But it was a really mind-boggling feeling that I've never felt before, and I definitely wanted to see if I can experience that again, and just the drive it what it did to me made me feel like I've never felt before, the most creative I felt. So it gave me that boost to be more creative in a sense,
Yeah, that's amazing.
to know that
I'm
to
I'm
know that it's
I'm glad you
inside of me.
didn't. I'm glad you didn't climb any trees, man. I don't think that's a very safe thing to do.
No,
But
no, especially with lightning, and that'd be terrible.
so, what got you into mycology? Like, why'd you start down this
Oh,
rabbit hole, as they like to call it?
before I fell in love
Yeah,
with
I think
with
we all do.
mycelium.
Yeah,
Yeah, before I was
absolutely.
addicted to agar. No, so I met my fiance, oof, 7 years, 8 years ago, and uh, we were, I'm into psychedelics, so we were doing a lot of LSD, every weekend, having a great time going to concerts, really being young and wild and free, and then I got to a point where I was like, I got to calm down with the acid, like, getting acid like hangovers, and it, having one or two bad experiences from mixing alcohol and psychedelics we just needed to cut back on it. So I remember having a great time on mushrooms, and she never tried mushrooms, and I thought, hey, like this would be really fun. Like we should try to find some and get some, and it's a lot harder to find than I thought it would be. I asked everyone that I grew up with, and friends of friends and associates, and they're like, "Oh, no idea, no idea." It's not something uh, that everyone like. Never, not really people dabble in. And this was, like I said, 8 years ago. So it wasn't like it wasn't on TV. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't blowing up anywhere. It was just something that people did in secret, unfortunately. And I eventually got my hands on some. We had some, I think it was like 2 grams each or 4 grams each. And when we had a blast, and I wanted to do it again. And I couldn't find anymore. The person who was like, "Oh no, that's not something I have all the time, or not something I spend my time looking for to have." Drug dealers are not the best people to get your mushrooms from. That's for damn sure. Uh, so
I'll agree
I
with
couldn't
that.
find them. Yeah, yeah. It was terrible because it was just something. I just wanted to have a relaxing evening. I wanted to go to the beach or do something fun, something that you want more. You want to absorb all of it and not just the that. I want it's like going on a it's like getting a tan at the beach. You have something that reminds you of being at the beach with your tan. The tan reminds you of that, the feeling of it, the warmth of it, the look of it. But so I didn't do much research. I ordered all in one bag. I ordered some spores from High Desert Spores. I think they're still around. Great feedback from them. Uh, Injected it, colonized it. Uh, Basically, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, I did zero research, and I I put it in a tote, a shoebox. It colonized. I had some contaminations. I looked at everything I can to fix the contaminations, salt, hydrogen peroxide, cutting it out. Uh, I ended up getting fruits, but I was such a didn't do any homework, so the fruits, they bruise, they blue, they oxidize. I didn't know. My fiance didn't know, so and I was like, shit, like I gotta have to throw these out. What's going on? I looked it up. It took a couple of Google searches to figure out like it was a completely normal thing for them to bruise. So I was like, all right, yeah, uh, we had them, and could have got like a half ounce from one all in one bag, then the rest contaminated. And then I started doing more research. BRF was the thing. Uh, the BRF tech is something that's almost guaranteed to not fail because it's relying on the mycelium to be at its like, strongest. It colonizes the brown rice flour and the vermiculite. It is in its own hardened organ, like a shell, and it's basically did that. Got good results. Still ended up with contamination at the end of it, like most things, like most grows, most bags or tubs, and I wanted us to keep reproducing uh, my grows. So I started making my own grains, making my own substrates, and following. I couldn't tell you so many different people's methods. So many, so many people's, and none of them were always precise. There was always something that was off. Too wet of a grain, too dry. Uh, it was always something didn't always work. Maybe out of 10 jars, two would contaminate, and it was just I was running into issues. Like, things are growing great, things colonize, and then contamination. I started have I just needed to find somebody who knew what they were doing, and I was when I took to Reddit, and Reddit, yeah, it's a bunch of nonsense, and for the most part, but then there's some people on there who are not only there in like to help people, but they're there to see where people are going astray from. Because you could have the best recipe, but forget the eggs, and then the recipe is nothing. Then you're left with a flat cake instead of a nice fluffy cake.
Nice analogy.
And that, yeah, you want to have uh, you want to have accurate. You want to work with an accurate like measurements. You always want to have the same good or the best results every single time. And this guy, his name's Justin Langley. I don't know where he's at now, but he was the man who showed me the right path in growing mushrooms, and it was a path of just do it the best way. no dilly dallying, no don't try this, try that, try this, don't try that. It's people have already done it for us. There's guys out there who've been doing this a way longer than some of us have been alive, and there's methods. The method to success is uh, what's it called? Shit. Just basically the same, like no flaws, perfect every single time. You want to have exact every single time the same. Any variations in there, it's gonna lead to issues.
Yeah, like repetition. You want to always you want to use the same text, and there's no what you're saying is there's no point to experiment anymore. Everybody's already done all the experimentation for you.
Yeah, yeah.
In a sense, in a
There's no
sense.
need to. Yeah.
So
Well, the knowledge isn't spread. The like we're still looking at books that are 30 years old, looking for information in them, like it hasn't already been combed over. There's information that hasn't been put out there to the public and to other growers because it. Why would someone want to give someone the success? It's kind of like hoarding the information, hoarding the right the right keys to the answers. And I get someone working really hard to perfect something, but once it's perfected and you've perfected it, share it. You're only going to hurt people by not sharing that. You're not going to. Oh, you could say, oh, they'll learn for themselves, but they're really you're going to let them go on Google or trust someone who's been doing it for a couple months because they've had a few successful shoeboxes. Like that's not how it works. You should have the best people who with the brightest minds explaining how things work and what actually is the best process for these for for growing mushrooms.
I agree. There's not enough people. Now like I don't know where I've been. It seems like there's a lot more people sharing and stuff like that now, like in these Discord servers and stuff like that. But it's needed. There's no reason not to want to see somebody succeed while growing the mushrooms. There's no reason for that. I don't understand why it was like that. I wasn't around in shroomery. I never really. I've only been doing it about almost 10 months now, and I never really looked on shroomery. But I heard that's like a site where they're just putting texts out there for people to fail. I don't know how true that is. I haven't really looked into the site, but you a
Shumari,
shroomery guy?
no, I never was. I've dug in and searched through pages and uh, never really took the time to make an account and you know really dig into it. But there is very interesting things to learn from other people's experiments and people's successes. Like what works for you might not necessarily work for me, and it might not be the best for me, but it might not even be the best for you, but it works for you, and I mean, that's data that should be it should be respected. It should be looked at as like stepping stones. A lot of work that's like think of it like a magazine. They publish stories that are written by people that not only are they don't have to be factual, they don't even have to be biased. They could just be opinionated, and and what um, that's the difference between recipes and and then like techniques. Because if I give you a recipe and say, hey, this is how it works, and it's everything is subject to change. Everything is everything can be adjusted to work better or work in certain instances. Um,
Like conditions, like in conditions,
Shroomary
sometimes
has
it's
a
less.
lot of. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say Shroomary has a lot of different growers with lots of different years of growth, and I mean I've seen Panelius grows on there that is below my mind. And it's a simple like let's say they write up a couple paragraphs, a list of equipment, a list of parameters for relative humidity and temperatures, and then times for that. Like, your fan kicks on every other hour for 5 minutes, or every 6 hours for 10 minutes, whatever and it's a simple list and recipe for what you need. A lot of people can't read that and understand it and turn that into a physically manifest it. So if I could say, oh, uh, you need all these things, put them all together, and then do it this way and do it that way. Some people need the visual keys, like videos or instructions or uh, instructional videos. Shroomers
Very
doesn't
well.
have those videos or those detailed instructions. Some of the guys on there, women on there, have it. They have it down, but some just put things out into the ether and they expect people to understand what they're saying.
That's why YouTube is such a big factor nowadays. For a lot of the new growers, they got a lot of great videos out there for people that are trying to learn. And there's still the odd text where you don't think they're going to work, and you just got to tailor them to your own conditions. I find sometimes it's less humid, sometimes it's more humid. So your field capacity is going to change, stuff like that. That's the only thing I've really found that I've needed to change is the field capacity in the winter and in the summer, because the summer it's in where I grow, it's more humid, and then in the wintertime it's a lot more dry. So for me, it's my field capacity
Yeah,
that I have to really, really change up. I don't really have to change my grains or anything like that. It's just the field capacity to keep the humidity and stuff up.
yeah, yeah. And everyone grows different. You might prep your substrate 24 hours in advance or 12 hours in advance, let it cool down, and then use it. You might pasteurize it or sterilize it and then let it sit in bags or in a container before you use it. Uh, and that all that it changes. Even if you have like me, I have substrate bags. Most of us are using bags to pasteurize, sterilize, and fruit in now. And I leave my substrate in there after I pasteurize them or sterilize them. And after a week or two, there is a noticeable difference in moisture content and how much volume, how much moisture actually is still in there. Even if I freeze some of my substrate bags, and I'll notice if I take them out of the freezer, they'll be they'll be a lot drier than when I put them in, just because uh, when the water freezes, it expands, and then once it unfreezes, that expanded when it's frozen, it just evaporates fast.
Yeah, why don't you take us a little bit through your bag tech there and how you're growing through bags? Me myself, I haven't had much success. I've done it a few times. I had one good bag. I'm a dub tub kind of guy. Why don't you
Oh yeah,
yeah, take us through your bag tech and let us know what's working for you, and a little bit about your
dub
tech set.
tubs and fruiting chambers are honestly it's one of the best ways for the mushrooms to grow, because they get to choose what they want to breathe in, what they want to push out, and they have you know easier way to do that than in a bag or in a tub completely sealed up. But for what I do with the bags is, well, let me see. So we have for gourmets, it's always going to be a lot of substrate, uh, straw pellets, wood pellets, cocoa coir, lots of substrate, at least a little amount of grain, right? Maybe like 10%, 15% grain, and that's because certain mycelium will pull nutrients and food from their substrate. Where cubensis, your most of your cubes, so most of your mushrooms, they're going to get most of all of the nutrients from the grains. So grains are the most important thing, and I can't stress it enough. The most important thing to success. It is the main food source for your mushrooms. Uh, it it done has to be done right. It has to be done right. It has to be hydrated right. Um, there's other there's other attributes to healthy spawn where going grain to grain is important. A lot of growers who don't have flow hoods or uh, they should have a still air box. But even if you don't have a still air box and you bought a, a grain bag or a substrate bag and you inoculated it, and you want to not lose it and only or just have you just don't want to have one tub. You want to have 5 tubs. Uh, Grain to grain is what your go to is, and you can't do that unless you have healthy grains. So with the bags, I go about 1 to 3, so like a pound or 2 pounds of grain spawn to 3 to 5 pounds of substrate, and the substrate is cocoa coir, vermiculite, and straw pellets you can use. If it's chopped straw from Tractor Supply or at a feed store, you're going to want to sterilize it. So you can wash it well, boil it even, and then sterilize it before you're adding it to your substrate. Or you can go ahead and Mushroom Media online. Not not affiliated with them much, but they have straw pellets that you can. I mean, it's a no-brainer to use straw pellets if you can afford it. Or like myself, I still have a bale of straw, so I'm gonna have to use the bale before I go and buy any more. Just the way I am. But yeah. So you mix the two in your flow hood or in your cabinet or your still air box. Uh, if you do not have clean air blowing into your area, you're gonna want not trap air in there. Obviously, you don't want to trap dirty air inside your bag. You're gonna want to just make sure you seal your bag or roll it up nice with binder clips. Some people use elastic bands or zip ties to close them, and then let them colonize. Then when it's time to fruit, they'll open it up a little bit, or even uh, sometimes you don't have to poke any holes in bags. I don't poke holes or release any CO2 buildup unless it needs it. It calls for it. Some mushrooms thrive in a high CO2 environment. Some don't. They they do not grow well at all in a high CO2 environment. Um, yeah, but you mix them, you pack them down, basically like you would pack a tub down or a shoebox. So it's a lot easier to do like a demonstration. But you basically want the creases in your bags to you want there to be creases. So you want to press down firmly until the substrate mix, the spawn and substrate mix actually squeezes the bag, and that helps with side pins. And side pins are just means your mycelium is healthy. It's just trying to grow. Not a bad thing. It is a bad thing when you're trying to fruit in the bag and you're getting side pins trying to fruit and not any on the surface. Where like in a tub, you wouldn't really mind side pins because they're side pins. You have a lot more surface area in a tub than you do in a bag.
Now that you mentioned, I think you just told me about the problem I've been having with my bags because I'm leaving the air trapped inside the bag. When I'm sealing the bag, I'm leaving the air trapped inside it. That's no good,
Yeah.
right? You want
If
no
you
air
don't
in
have
there.
a hood, it's not too good because you're trapping uh, possibly contaminated air or spores inside that bag. So if you do have one, I wouldn't. You could literally fill the bag up with air if you wanted to and seal it because that air is clean.
Well, that's not the problem. Then shoot, I thought I figured something out. I mean,
Packing it
there's
down
some
helps a lot too.
maybe that's what I'll do next time. I'll just try and take all the air out and see what happens. And the only bag that I actually got to work, I cut the top and I put micropore tape across it, so it wasn't sealed. It was opened up at the top with the micropore tape, and that's the only bag I ever had go that actually fruited.
Yeah, the
So
fresh air exchange.
yeah, I'm gonna
We,
give that a
I,
shot. And what's that? Go ahead.
oh yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm gonna give that a shot and try and squeeze out the bag and see maybe if that helps me out a little bit, just to get the air out.
Well, and once it's fully colonized, you can introduce fresh air. I mean, not fresh air, but air from your room, because it's fully colonized now. So the chances of it being contaminants germinating, or spores germinating and coming to life on, growing and fighting with it, are pretty low. You know, once everything's colonized, it's like you won the war. You already won the fight. Now you just have to let the fruits grow, and basically they'll compete and they'll combat anything that's trying to grow alongside with it.
Well, the way I've been doing it is I add the core to the bag after, like, I colonize my grains and then I add the core. So I haven't been doing it like the all in one kind of way. I've just been doing it like that. Like I pasteurize my core and then I put it in the bag afterwards. Do you know? So I
Yeah.
colonize my grains and then I put it in, and then um so I have to, once my core is completely colonized, I should be safe to go. But
Yes. Yes.
somehow I'm introducing something into it where it's just stalling out, and that's it. So I'm gonna have to go. Like I
If
said, I don't really grow too much in bags. I've been just trying to mess around with it a little much, and I haven't been
if
having
there's
good success. So I'm defeated in that way. So it goes back to your topic where works. Use what works for you. You know.
Yeah, no, for definitely. And if there's too much moisture in the bag, that'll lead to contamination issues. Either you'll get like wet rot, and um, just too wet, too saturated is just breeding grounds for contaminants as well. Mycelium fruits, when they start decomposing, they actually start creating other types of bacteria. So if you have, like, that's why they say if you're gonna pick your first your flushes, pick everything. Don't leave anything, because that mycelium is now that it's now weakened, and it's gonna try to start decomposing. So you always want to clean everything off your blocks, off your bags, off your tubs. Clean everything off. That's another big thing. Don't leave them. If you're gonna leave any, let that be because they're about halfway done. They only need about 24, 48 hours left to fully mature. That's the only time you should really leave anything. If it's like, that one's dead or hunched over, you just take it out. It's not that hard to save a cake from the fruits that are dying from other possible contaminants.
So
There
don't
was
get
one thing I
lazy.
wanted. Yeah,
Don't get
no, no,
lazy.
yeah, laziness is bad.
I gotta admit, man. Sometimes I'm one of those guys. Sometimes I get a little lazy and leave a few there, but I haven't really had too many problems. I'm not leaving on, like, a whole whack of them. Sometimes I just get lazy, and that's bad. That's a bad thing. But
Yeah, I've seen pictures of people. Mushrooms, like, they're dead. They're dead. They're starting to rot. The gills will actually turn like purple. You've seen Jack Frost,
I have.
the variety of Jack Frost. So when Jack Frost fully matures, the cap will bend completely over and face the substrate, and then the gills will turn a magnificent violet color, magnificent blue. It's beautiful, beautiful. That's how you know they're fully mature. Right? Any other mushroom that was an albino and had pigmented spores, you would look and be like, "Oh my God, those are all dead. Those are all dying. I need to pick all of them." But with Jack Frost, it's a beautiful thing. It's very, what's the word? It's I it, it's when you know they're mature. It's satisfying to see them get there, but you know it's time to pick them. Where all of the other mushrooms you would pick a lot sooner than that. But once that blue turns purple, they're soft. Once it becomes really soft, they're no good. It's unfortunate because you could still eat them. I'm sure of it, but you're risking other bad bacteria being on them when they start decaying like that.
Yeah, and
And not to say that
I hear a lot of
it,
people saying like for the apes and stuff to let them grow and let them get mushy. I don't find that to be true myself. Like every time I let them get mushy, I notice the like and I cut them down. I notice there's like brown on the bottom. Letting them get soft. I don't know. I I don't. I'm not. I like them to be a little bit solid myself.
yeah, yeah. There's a few that they will go soft. Like soft is another sign of maturity or yeah, time to harvest. Once it gets too soft and it gets mushy, it's not uh, it's not what it's not what you would eat at the grocery store. You don't want to go to the grocery store and grab a vegetable that's all mushy. You're not going to grab a tomato that's all mushy. You're not going to grab mushrooms that are all slimy looking and beaten up. You're not you're gonna look at them and say, "Wow, that's disgusting. I don't want to cook that. I don't want to put that into my body." Um, but it's a fun thing to see because you can kind of help people with that. Let your mushrooms drop spores. Let them. It's not. I don't find it to be a bad thing. Or pick the ones that haven't, or pick the ones that are dropping spores, and then let the other ones catch up and pick those too once they start dropping spores. It's a healthy thing.
It makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, I
In
wanted to talk up. Go
what's
ahead.
that? No, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna ask you about your cloning selection and why you choose to clone certain, like if you go with the biggest fruit or if you go with the cluster and the biggest fruit in the cluster, and why do you do that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of monster mushrooms. I know a lot of people are too. They are beautiful. They have uh, this not bag appeal, but they have the potential to have genetics. Like so, we look at let's say the biggest lion in the jungle, the biggest guy in the basketball court. Like they have these things about them that that are like desirable. They have purpose in certain ways. They have different genetics. I myself love mushrooms that cluster that have a full canopy. There's no space to stick anything in between. They are just they're going going crazy, going doing amazing. But then you'll have, let's say, a tub where you'll have tons of aborts and only a few big mushrooms grow up, and it's never really with some varieties, all of them will be big and thick. Some of them will be big, but they'll be skinny with big gold caps. Uh, there's so many new ones that are being released and worked on through so many different hands. It's just remarkable. So like if I take if I take a clone from this big single monster mushroom and they grew the fastest is another key thing. Ones that grow fast, ones that have no trouble growing alongside other mushrooms, but still has a different characteristics. Ones that leave an impression. So there's like Shakti, Nutcracker, Yeti, um, some there's a lot of there's the flowers, the koi size super strain. Like there's so many different mushrooms from all over the world and grown through so many different people's hands that I mean depends on what you want. If you want a big mushroom to grow, if you want your mushrooms to be all big, go for that big clone. But if you want nice thick flushes, uh, you want to grow in bulk of this certain one, then aim for cloning clusters and plates. Always throw plates to grain, even clone plates. Clone one, T0, no transfers from that, just tissue sample onto the plate. If it grows out awesome and beautiful, make a transfer and put that plate to grain because you're gonna lose more if you don't. The more you get from that clone, the more you get further away from that big monster mushroom and more to smaller um, smaller mushrooms. Now
So you're
that
just saying
can,
don't even isolate it. Just as soon as you take that tissue, put it on your agar. If it's clean, throw it to the grain right away. Don't take no transfers.
yep, yep.
Because,
If that grain colonizes good, put it to substrate, and that it flushes big mushrooms like the clone you got or the first time. Clone another one that's that big, and then you keep going until all you have is big ass mushrooms growing. You kind of wean out the little guys, and same thing we said about clusters. You keep going to the best cluster, and not necessarily the best cluster, but the one that grew, in your eyes, your perspective, the one that grew the best. In, like, let's say you grow in tubs, so the corners of your tubs will have more humidity and pooling of condensation than the middle of the tub. So you might have better clusters on the outsides, but then you'll have a cluster that pumps right up in the middle and be like, wow, like I want that one because that one doesn't need the corners to pull its moisture from or to pull it air from. It's using what it has.
so the
I don't know
genetics will be
if that makes
stronger, in
sense.
your opinion. The genetics will be stronger.
Not that the genetics will be stronger, but the conditions that it likes to grow in,
Will be,
it's more suitable for what you're doing. Like for instance, I grow in bags. Those always, they take up too much space. They're You got to maintain them and spray them. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. They dry out, they don't dry out. There's a bunch of different variables with tubs, so I try to stay away from them unless they're small like shoe boxes. That's more manageable. But with bags, Melmac seems to be the variety that grows the best, the biggest, and it always has. It always has. They a lot of I've been growing a lot of hillbilly lately, and man, it does not give two shits. I've seen it grown in tubs, bags. It doesn't care what's going on. It just wants to grow. And if you get genetics that are like that, then uh, you want if you want things to stay the same, then grain to grain. If you want to keep getting bigger mushrooms or bigger clusters, go clone. If you want if you just want to grow this variety and you've never grown it before, try it from spore. A lot of genetics that I'm starting back up, I don't see them often. Not a lot of people are growing them, and if they are growing them, they're getting somebody's clone or somebody's some phenotype that someone really liked, or they're getting something that's already worked on and just loves to grow. But it's like not personal. Like when you use spores, it's a lot, you get more personal with what you're doing because the odds are not in your favor. The odds are gonna go to something maybe a little bit different, maybe something that's not precise. And if it's already been through someone's hands and it's like a tissue, like a LC or a plate, then you're growing someone else's work, and it's fun. It's awesome, and I mean it's the easiest way to get the best results. But when you see someone who's like really new at growing, going from spore syringe, I'm on that guy's I'm on that guy's team, rooting for that guy a lot harder than somebody who just bought liquid culture because that person's in for it. Like they're in for the work. They're in for the maybe an albino pops up or a linguistic trait pops up and they grow and they're like, oh my god, what do I do? And it's like, wow, I see that would have never happened if you bought a liquid culture. That would have never happened if you bought a plate from somebody because those things happen less and less when they're worked. I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah, I love that statement. I'm actually a spore guy myself. I
Yeah.
I love going from the spores. Of course, I have my own, like my own transfers and stuff. But as far as the spores, that's the way to go for me, anyways. I keep all my like my swab plates and stuff. I don't send them. I just keep them and I just put them in the fridge. I can go back to them or whatever, but I should probably just send the whole the whole swab right away, right? Because as soon as I start isolating the genetics, now I got a question. Maybe like, say I use a swab and I put it on the agar plate, right, and everything grows out. Is like how do I say this? Where I take a transfer on the plate, will it be all different genetics? So, like I said, I keep the plate, right? So if I take a a transfer from say 3 o'clock, and then I took one from 6 o'clock, they'll be totally different, correct?
Uh, that all depends on what germinated and how many spores are germinating or germinated. So like so when you swab or spore syringe to agar and you snake it or you make your grid,
I
um,
usually dip it, dunk it. Sorry, I dunk mine. So really, all the genetics are connected together right away.
right in the center of the plate.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you would want to let it grow, and I within 5 days, within 5 days, I'm taking transfers from a spore swab or a spore syringe because the faster you take a transfer, the more you narrow down what's germinated or not. So let's say I let that plate grow for 10 days. Now I let it tens of thousands of colonies of spores mate and germinate. Now it's going to be so much harder for me to get down to a nice, happy, like rhizomorphic, even growth and less competition. So, uh, you always want to look for rhizomorphic growth right off the rip. Um, Edward Grand, he's been getting monocultures off of spore swab plates, and that to me is scary. It's scary for someone who's not used to agar. Um, so it's scary for someone who's even seasoned at working with agar because let's say I take a transfer from something I think is healthy, it's happy, it's aggressive, and I put it to another agar plate and it grows out beautiful. Maybe a little tomatose, maybe a little hairy, but it's clean, it's fine. So it's a grain and it never fruits. And I'm not going to hang on to that and say, oh, I got a monokaryotic culture in here. I'm gonna say that's not what I wanted. I wanted something that's gonna give me fruit. Yeah. So sometimes you have to transfer. So transfer. You said 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock might not be exactly the same uh, as far as looks, as far as fruiting times and what they like or not. But you have to grow them out. You have to see for yourself uh, what's going on. I
So
usually
then,
take five or
so I guess
six transfers from a spore swab right off the
okay,
back.
okay. So I guess like the question was like my question. So is it beneficial for me to keep those plates that are my spore plates that are fully grown out to look for phenos, or should I just send the whole plate instead of taking
You sh-
transfer and then grow?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I would keep it. I would take your first transfers from the plate. So like I do like five or six. So I do, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you know, 9, 11, 12, anywhere that has nice rhizomorphic growth that it doesn't look like uh, this branches. So what you'll see is uh, it won't be uniform growth. Like you'll have a like I call them like like a flower in bloom. So like you'll have a bloom of rhizomorphic growth right next to another set of a bloom of rhizomorphic growth, and then they're not connected. So they're kind of their own. They have their own way, like they're growing in their own way. They're not meshing together with these other pieces of other strands of mycelium. And then you would just take the most healthiest, aggressive ones, and you're talking 5 days after germination. 5 days after you stick that spore in that agar, 5 or 6 days. The moment you start seeing growth, I like to explain it like it goes from a nickel to a quarter to a $half to complete puck. The whole puck has come colonized. So when it's around a nickel sized, you can actually start seeing the difference in growths. When it starts to become the size of a quarter, so in another 24, 48 hours, you're going to start seeing even more growth. And you're going to start seeing how it's great to take pictures. So you don't have to like, oh, that looked like this or that one looked like that. If you have a picture of of your plate every couple of days to see what's actually going on, or you circle it and write, the day in which, like, these plates are from March. So you're gonna do, okay, this was on the first. Oh, look, it's over here now on the sixth. It's over here now. So it grew. I knew how much I'm tracking it in my own uh in my own way, and I know I'm gonna take these transfers because they're growing a lot faster than these. And then you would take all those transfers and send them to grain. But the plate you transferred from, I wrap it up, stick it in the fridge. Uh, Depending on, I see it's not, I see it's not, it's a spore. So there's so much going on in that place. So if you did put that to grain, the odds are you're gonna get a lot of different growth fighting with each other. It's gonna fruit, but it's not gonna be the prettiest and it's not gonna be it's not gonna be like T1 or T2 is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, because I got about, I think I got about 30 of them sitting in my fridge right now for when I want to go back and start taking transfers and stuff like that. So I was just like, I never really asked any questions about that. So I was kind of curious if it was even worth it, for me to keep those. But for pheno hunting, you're saying that it's good to keep them and take your transfers and grow them out. So
Yeah, or you know what you could do too is if we swab in sets, so you could just if you have the other set, like, I mean, the one of the pair from that swab, then that's just as good as having that plate in the fridge, because you can always take that swab and go right back to that agar and start all over again. Having it on ice is good because it's there. All you got to do is wait until it gets to room temperature and grows a little bit to transfer it. But yeah, it's I always say it's better to have it than not to have it.
I
Always,
I agree.
always, always, always. I've had a few genetics that I've completely ruined in my eyes, and I couldn't ever get them back. And I'm thankful that other people in the community have the years of experience that I could say, hey, you know anyone who has this in their library? And someone says, oh, yes, yeah, they have to dig for it, but they do have it. So that it's always good to. That's another reason. A good thing to do is share what you have. Don't try to make a buck off people. Just share. If you see someone who's been growing for 6 months and they've had nothing but contamination issues and nothing but bad flushes and issues with grains or substrate, or just help. Just share what you know and share what you got going on, even if it's something that like you make dear to yourself. You like, oh yeah, this one's, I worked so hard on this. I did this. This one's perfect. I don't want to give this away. I know I got to make something from this. It's like, you don't have to. You're gonna make somebody's day. That's what you're gonna do. That's what you're gonna make. You're gonna make somebody happy. It has to be. It's not about making money. It's about making people better people.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's phenomenal. It's like
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. We were earlier.
I,
Me and you were talking. I just wanted to touch on this just a little bit. We were talking about you were talking more about it. The cardboard for substrate and the the book there. What was the name of that book? I just forgot. Let's talk a little bit about that. The radical
oh,
mycology.
Radical Mycology. Yeah, by Peter
Yeah,
McCullough.
we were talking a little bit about that. You got my interest sparked on that, and I was wondering if you want to just touch on a little bit of that stuff.
Yeah. So we all should be happy using cocoa core. They're not cutting down forests for us. I'll tell you that right now. Cocoa coir is a material that is basically a recycled material. from the collection of coconut trees for coconut water, for coconut oil. Coconut coir is the recycled and reduced parts of that industry. So we're basically using the byproduct to grow our mushrooms in, uh, and that's kind of gratifying in a way because you could go buy uh, store bought compost. You can go buy anything really to grow your mushrooms in. Like you could go use cardboard or straw, and even that stuff is recycled. We were talking about straw being the byproduct of grains, and how all we're feeding mycelium recycled waste in a sense. And the radical mycology is a good book. Yeah, we're talking about how the um, doing a read along. We do that in over there the Trip Team family. It's on, I think it's every Saturday or every Sunday. There's a few things in that book that go beyond, like what am I saying? I was like, if you question something, write it down, and if something sparks your interest, jot it down too, and you use those things as like fuel, and say, hey, next time you're in the grocery store and uh, buy go down the bacon aisle and look at all of the flowers that they have. And there's a lot of, you don't want to try and you don't want to try something and go big with it. Try something and go small with it. Yeah, I don't know if you heard of the V8 agar, using V8 juice.
No, that's new to me.
Yeah, you can use V8 juice, I think. I use, and I tell everyone that I use this because I'm not afraid of it. Cat food, cat food
Yeah,
pellets,
I think
dry cat food. You can use
I
lizard
seen
food,
something about that one.
iguana food, crickets and all.
Dog, dog food
Uh,
as well.
yeah, you could use dog food as well. There's there's endless things that the mycelium um, will eat, and I mean, just like a lot of stuff, like heavy metals is bad for us. It's bad. If it's bad for us, it's bad for mycelium. If it's bad for animals, it's probably bad for mycelium. That should be simple enough for everyone to understand. Yeah, if it's not healthy, if it's not healthy for us, it's probably not healthy for the mycelium. Um, yeah, yeah. I
I
haven't read
I
too
seen a
much.
I seen a post on Reddit. A guy was using what do they call that? Gatorade, and he was doing liquid culture in Gatorade. I mean, it could have been water with blue food coloring. I don't know, but I mean, Gatorade.
Yeah, I seen a post that someone was using some electrolyte powder, like it's called like C4 or something. But that's all. I mean, if it works for you, try it. If it doesn't work, then don't. If it doesn't work, don't subscribe.
That's
If it's
it,
not,
eh?
if it's yeah, if it's not working for you, then don't tell anybody that it could work for them. If it doesn't work for you, um, yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
There
So
was
I'm trying to. What's that?
there was something I wanted to talk about, was the grain spawn.
Well, the mic's yours, man. That's what you're here
Yes,
for. Whatever
grain
you'd like to
spawn.
discuss.
We get the drum roll for the grain spawn.
Hold on,
Uh,
hold on here. I never used it yet. Let's check it out here. Hold on. Where are we at? You want a drum roll?
yes, do a drum roll. Hell yeah, we got a drum roll. So
Yeah,
grain
man. I
spawn,
never used those yet.
dude. I'm happy you did. Gives me a gut. You set the stage. Grain
Okay,
spawn,
hold
extremely
on.
important.
Give me 1 second. Silence for a sec. 1 sec. Ready?
Grain spawn. Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah. Grain spawn, super important. It is the food for all life. Grains are the food for all life. Even ourselves, grains play a huge part in our diets every single day for millennia. Uh, so we should make them the best for our mushroom friends. And I was taught this method 2-3 years ago. This has been the only way that I do grain spawn. I do other ways as well, but that's because I'm on a time crunch, or I have other shit going on in my life that I'm not like. I don't want to sit around and have to dry and cook and sterilize and spend 6 hours doing this at a time. Not a big fan of doing that. So this method just basically brings you in to to the forced hydration method. It's actually called the Stoller method, Stoller Tech for grains. It was developed by a doctor named Benjamin Stoller in the 70s. A friend of mine goes by Nola, Justin Langley. He's been a mushroom farmer for quite a while, and she showed me this, taught me this, and I haven't had any single issues with this besides this making it and adjusting it to what works for me. So what it is just we hydrate our grains. This is what we've been told. You boil them, you simmer them, you strain them, you dry them, you bag them, or you jar them up, and then you PC them, or you put them in pressure canner, or you're all American and you sterilize them. And it it's just been the way everyone does it. That's the way everyone does it, and that's what everyone tells you how that's the best way and how it works. So why change something that works? But it is not the best way. When we boil and simmer our grains, we're losing about half the water soluble nutrients in those grains. Just like pasta, like rice. If you boil it, if you simmer it, and you pour out all that water, you're losing all those water soluble nutrients that you just basically cooked out of your grains that you're not going to give to your mushrooms. And that's something that's not talked about. It. People use grain water for agar, grain water for a lot of stuff. It's very valuable in a sense because we do pay the most for our grains. We should be paying about 50 cents a pound. Some people are paying over $1.50 a pound for their grains, which is crazy. So let's just get right into it. So you want your grains to be about 50% moisture content when they're done. All right, and when they're stored in a silo, when they're stored for sale, it's about 11% is the stable hydration for grains in a silo. So the math is this: you take your dry grains, you times your dry grain weight by 0.9. So let's say 1,000 grams of grains would get 900 times 0.9 would get 900 grams of water, or 10 pounds of grains would get 9 pounds of water. Do it like that, simple, 9 to 10. And then what you would do is you would add that to a stock pot, and you can get a 20-quart stock pot make sure it's stainless. It has to be a stainless steel pot. If it's aluminum, the aluminum will become toxic to the mycelium. So you'll basically poison your grains before they're even ready. Before you even start, you're already poisoned your grains. To make sure it's a stainless steel pot, you can get a 12-quart pot, and that will fit in your 23-quart Presto or your pressure canner. You would add your grains and water. You would add that to your PC. You want about 2 to 3 inches of water in your PC. So not enough that it goes up to the pot that's inside the PC, but enough to go about halfway to the pot. So 2 to 3 inches of water in there. And then you're going to add calcium carbonate or oyster shells. This actually helps with so we're force hydrating. So there's not going to be any water left in that pot. Ever we're pushing and forcing all the water into the grain, fully hydrating them. So the calcium carbonate is being basically forced into your grains. They're cooked into your grains. So it's mycelium eats calcium. They'll eat it, and they enjoy it. It's literally part of their diet. Uh, Mycelium acidifies things when they're eating it, so this helps balance the pH when they're eating the grains, eating the food, makes so that the mycelium in the grains are not going to get uh, too toxic. Then you don't want your grains stalling out because the mycelium are having too rough of a time eating the grains. It's like eating pineapple. There's a lot of it'll burn your mouth. There's a lot of acidity when I see them eating the grains. So that helps bring that pH down, so they can actually eat the grains without any issues occurring from the process in which they eat them. And then you're gonna stir it all up. You're gonna put your lid on to your pot. You're gonna put your lid on top of your Presto, your pressure canner, and then you're going to turn on the heat. Now, everyone should know this, but when you're using a pressure cooker or a pressure canner, I don't know if all Americans have a vent on them, but you want to vent your PC to 7 to 10 minutes. You can look into your Presto owner's manual and it'll say this: if you do not vent, you're trapping in air and you're pressurizing the air inside of that canner. So it might tell you 15, but that's just pressurized air. It's not actual heat and steam pressure. It's just air pressure, where we want to create this double boil forced hydration going on in here inside the pressure cooker. So you're going to do that for a pressure canner. It's going to be 30 minutes. You can do it at 5, 10, 15 psi. And now these are all adjustable, and you have to figure out what works best for you. If it's vent for 10 minutes and then put the weight on when it hits 5, run it for half an hour. Uh, if you're running it at 15 and you're getting popped grains for 30 minutes, maybe go for 10 psi instead of 15 psi. If you're still getting popped grains, you go 5 psi for half an hour. If you're using an all-American, I was told 45 minutes is what you want, because the buildup, it's an enclosed system, so it has to take some more time to build up pressure. Sometimes stay hot. So 45 minutes in an all-American. And this is very important. Very important. When it's done, you can leave it in there, or you can turn the heat off, open it up, let the steam pour out, take the stock pot out of your pressure cooker, and you can bring it outside even, or in your hallway. It's gonna smell like grains, whether it's oats, millet, Milo, sorghum. It's gonna smell like grains. The worst grain, I think, is oats. Oats have smells awful for a while. Uh, you got to open the windows. I don't mind it, but everyone else in the house minds it. So I usually open up all the windows and close off part of the kitchen when they're cooling. But it's 8 to 12 hours. You're going to let that cool for 8 to 12 hours outside, or in the hallway, or in your kitchen, just at room temperature. Let it 8 to 12 hours. Now we do this, super, super important to do this. That's where the no soak, no simmer method is a big flaw in it, is that endospores. Uh, Endospores are spores that from humans have been doing things so well that bacteria and spores had to evolve and catch up to what we're doing so that they can survive too. So endospores are spores that do not come alive until they're hydrated. So you have to hydrate endospores for them to germinate. So we do this by cooking our grains, force hydrating our grains, and then letting them sit 8 to 12 hours to let those endospores germinate. So the endospores have to germinate for us to kill them and sterilize them. This is where it's all misconstrued. Endospores, they have to germinate to kill them. So that's what we do. 8 to 12 hours, let it cool down. And then that basically lets the endospores, if there are any, germinate. And the next important part is to, when you take out your grains, it's going to come like a nice big block. And I sent you a few pictures, um, and those pictures basically show you the grains coming out. It's gonna be like a big BRF, a big puck of grains, and all your grains will look like this when they do come out. Some might come out more freely than others, but you're just gonna break up all those grains, all the clumps, everything. Just break it all up nice and even, and it's not gonna be wet. It's gonna be hydrated. It might be a little sticky, but it's hydrated, and that's the most important thing, is that it's not wet. And then we're gonna coat with gypsum. Gypsum is very, very important in the process of doing this grain tech. The gypsum will help, and will only help, and its only use is for particle separation. It's basically so that your grains do not stick together. Wet grains, wet popped grains, is an invitation to any other life forms to come and eat alongside our mycelium, and that is bad news. That is the last thing we want, is other things being invited to the table when we're not trying to grow them. We're just trying to grow cubes, or just trying to grow oysters. We don't want anything else competing with our friends, because that's going to lead to smaller flushes, other contaminations. It's a boatload of other problems. And then you're going to coat. You can use 1% gypsum to total weight. You could use even more than that. I use, God, a lot more than that, and make sure everything is coated. Nice coating on every grain, and they should roll right off your hand. They shouldn't be sticky. Nothing. It should look like little covered pieces of grains. And then you would bag or jar, put in your canner or your All American. 90 minutes, 15 psi, or 120 for at 15 psi. And then that's the grain method. And using this method, I have seen dramatic, dramatic, like no contaminations. And if I do have contamination, it is from an LC that was uh, tested and then sat, or it was from a spore syringe that I don't know, had one left that was 3 years old or something, or it was from the grain to grain that I should have waited longer to do the grain to grain to make sure there was no other contaminants on the grain. Uh, yeah, and that's how I've been doing grain for, God, 2 or 3 years now, and it has really helped with never having issues with overhydrated or underhydrated, or dirty, or just an all around great method. And another thing I wanted to add was, if you're using jars and they're becoming expensive, you can use mayo jars, 32-ounce mayo jars. They're cheaper. I mean, so much cheaper than Mason canning jars, and it's the same use. And they're probably better glass as well, because let's face it, once they got the idea that everyone was using these jars for mushrooms, the quality of glass kind of changed. But yeah, it's called the doctor. It's called the stroller technique. If you could find it anywhere on the internet, Benjamin Stroller.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that tech, man.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe since you were talking about liquid culture, maybe you can go a little bit about your liquid culture recipes and stuff like that. How you like to make your liquid culture?
Yeah, of course. If you're just starting out, you do not need a stir bar plate or a metal magnetic stir bar. You you should order your uh, your syringe filters and your self-healing injection ports through a mushroom cultivator, or mushroom website. Just because you're gonna get quality, you're not. If you order it off Amazon, you're gonna get 100 things that you don't know where they came from or how long they've been where they are. If you're getting it from someone who is makes them and has them available, that's your best bet. Plus, it helps people continue this. Um, so you want a point 2 point 2 micron syringe filter. So you have like little red ones, little green ones. They have white ones. They have bigger green ones, bigger red ones. As long as they're point 0.2 micron. You can also get the syringe self-healing injection ports. They're called ships, SHIP, ship, and they have different colors. The red ones seem to hold up a lot better if you're going in and out of them often. Like if you're testing your LC once a week because you're using it in house or on whatever scale you're doing, you're using that liquid culture every week, or you're just using it to take a bunch of syringes out of one time because you want to store your syringes that way and not store an LC in the fridge in a mason jar or a flask even. For recipes, I love using sorghum syrup. It's just super easy. It your keeps things nice and clear, not foggy. Sometimes if you're using light malt extract or extra light malt extract or yeast or peptone, it'll if it overcooks, if you don't mix it up well, it might become a little foggy. And that doesn't mean it's bad. You should always uh, you should always test your liquid cultures after you inoculate them and they colonize. Basically, for me, it's 7 to 10 days. So a liquid culture should be ready to go 7 to 10 days after inoculating. If it's not, then I mean that's stirring it every day, multiple times a day. Uh, or after 10 days and it's not fully colonized or it's still going, I'll wait and maybe test it a few more days after that. But that's roughly where it should be, about 7 to 10 days with an aggressive mycelium should colonize that about 7 to 10 days. Mixing it up every day. Again, multiple times a day is fine. But so I think the rule of thumb is like 4% for a liquid culture. So what is that? 500 milliliters is so you would want. Uh, I always what was it? It was the recipe was I think it was 5 grams of LME, and then some people have 1 gram of LME. Some people have they add a bunch of different things to the liquid culture, which I mean it's fine. Uh, I wouldn't. I would stay away from honey, just because honey has other properties, other other sugars, and it's not just a simple sugar. Uh, that's another one I've seen. I haven't tried raw sugar. I haven't tried stevia yet for liquid culture, but anything would work as long as it's. I think Mossy Creek said it like this: if you can take a sip of it and it not taste sweet, it's good. These 20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh,
What do
hey
y'all,
Stinky.
what have you been using for liquid culture?
Me, I mostly use honey. I don't use liquid culture too much. You know what? I make it and it just sits in my fridge. I test it, make sure it's clean, and then it just sits in my fridge, man. I don't even know why I take my time and and make it just to give it away. I guess like I don't use it at all ever.
Wow.
So, but I
Wow.
just use. I think it's I need my book, but I think it's I just use honey and I use I think it's 10 grams for 500 milliliters. I'd have to check my book. I have everything written down, but yeah, that's all I've
Yeah,
used. And once you said, what's that?
I was just gonna say I'd use boiled sweet potato water as a liquid culture, and it works. It
Hmm.
works. Even I didn't know how much sugar was in there, but it colonized everything. It colonized. It was clean. It colonized grains. I think it was like a super tat or S tat that I had a while ago that I inoculated. Yeah, the Yam water, I called it. Yam water liquid culture.
Nice. We have Brown Treasure here. They have a question for you.
What up, Zerk?
What's up, Stinky? How you doing? Um,
Chilling.
I
Thank you for
actually,
coming on today.
yeah. What's going on? So, I was actually, you're somebody I got a tremendous respect for, and in Willie's server, and you're always on that next level, and I always appreciate your perspective and your insights, and you always, you're a great dude. But I do have a question that I thought I'd pick your brain on. Wondering what if you knew anything about it. But basically, I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking about kind of like doing an experiment where if you took, like, let's say, a grain bag that was contaminated with like trichoderma or bacteria or whatnot, like, couldn't what it would it be possible to re-sterilize the bag and reuse it? Like, would it not kill all the contaminants in the bag? Like, I've always been curious about that. I was wondering if you knew anything about it.
Yeah, I would just start fresh. I
Just
know.
just as like an experiment, just to see if it works. Somebody asked why. Just
Yeah.
to do something, fun.
So how? And now we're talking like let's say it's about 20% colonized, and the contamination shows itself, and then let's say you throw it in your PC and sterilize it. Your that mycelium that's colonized, those grains.
Hmm.
Imagine like it being flesh, and you just cooked flesh with those other
Right.
grains. It's gonna become mushy. It's not gonna be a
Not going to be
viable.
too appetizing for the mycelium after
No,
that, right?
definitely not. There has been Jesse Noller uh posted this article, and he's doing a lot of he did a lot of research on it. But it's a certain type of bleach. It's like HOMC, HOML. Uh,
Right.
it's and he's taken a grain jar that was 90% colonized with mycelium, 10% colonized with trichoderma, and the trichoderma was everywhere. The spores were everywhere on the mycelium. He
Right.
just a syringe full into the grain jar, closed it, gave it a good shake,
Yeah.
uh, poured out the excess,
Sorry,
let
my
it
sorry,
basically
I got
dry.
dogs. I'm sorry. Hang on.
Yeah, yeah. But he said it worked phenomenal. He said it worked great for him. He put the grains to substrate, and it fruited, completely killed the contamination without harming the mycelium. There's a few things that will won't harm the mycelium, but will harm contaminants. Um, but I mean, if it's something that you can't live without, then I would try the different methods to save it. Um, or what you could do is you could take a piece of one of those colonized grains in a contaminated jar and put that to agar, and then just work from there.
All right. Oh, wait,
But
what did you
it's
say that was called? You said it was something that he used. What was it called?
HOMLC. I can get the
HOMLC.
it's a
Hang
type
on.
of it's a type of bleach that doesn't harm mycelium in any way. And you could
HMOLC.
submerge uh, your mycelium in it, and it would only harm the bad bacteria.
So, yeah, do you think that would, man, that might be useful in, like, let's say if you had a little bit of cobweb or something, maybe. Some people use 10% hydrogen peroxide solution.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
The but even that harms the mycelium, I think.
yeah, I did it one time with the hydrogen peroxide, and like the mushrooms grew up and they were all like bleached white. I mean, it was really weird.
Yeah, they yeah, there's if it's for an experiment and just just to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's worth a shot. That's another. Yeah, like you could. I've seen old videos where what they would do is they take a grain jar and they'd fill it with fully colonized grains or a grain bag fully colonized, and they would add distilled water into the bag or into the jar, close the jar up, shake the shit out of it, break up all the grains in the water, and they would use that to inoculate other grain jars. So they're rehydrating, they're hydrating the mycelium if it needs it, but also they're spreading it out into the distilled water, using it as like a liquid culture in its raw sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
So putting distilled water into colonized grain, shaking it up, and then using that as a liquid culture.
Boom, bingo. Yeah. Hey, that's how they did it. That's how they did it decades ago. They didn't sterilize its own. People who make liquid cultures with injection ports and syringe and self-healing and syringe filters, that's it's basically spread it, like makes, like, to sell it or give it away or to store for a for something that's long term. But back in the day, it was just simple grain jar, distilled water, good shake. Let's pour that, 10, a little pour in each grain jar, and then that's how you would inoculate through liquid culture, by making it like that.
Man, thank you so much for that, Stinky. That's really interesting. That you always, bring stuff to the front that like I never think about. So that's awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Hey, did you ever check out the I wanted to talk about him a little bit today. What's his name? Pollock. Stephen Pollock.
Yeah, I got it. You're talking about the dish you sent me, right?
No. Stephen Pollock. He was a
Oh,
mycologist
I'm thinking about that dish you sent
who
me. No problem.
no. That's the
Stephen Hall. Yeah.
the Stefan Marbury. No, Stephen
Yeah.
Pollock. He was
Another
a
Stephen.
genius, and he did a lot of work. 1 second, kiddo. He did a lot of work in basically breaking the mold on what's possible for growing mushrooms, and instead of having these giant corporations and giant farms that grow all these gourmets, like the you could have these farms have like Nova Scotia. You could harvest and forage what you actually would need, and not make all this, grow all of these, and then throw out whatever doesn't sell. It was really cool.
All right.
Guy was top of his different type of guy.
Right. Awesome.
Sorry,
Stephen
my
Pollock,
kid's
right?
going nuts. Yeah.
I'll check him out.
Yeah. You should definitely.
Excellent.
I have a few things I can share in the TTF and the other chat too, on Travel and Psychonauts, the Mushroom Speaks.
Yeah, I was looking at some of those, like you were saying, you could use V8 juice for agar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was looking through that radical mycology book there that you pointed out earlier, and they got a few things here, like beef broth, chicken broth, malt activated carbon. This book is excellent, man. I got to get into this and start reading it.
Yes.
Can mushrooms eat meat? I mean, something about that
It's the
just seems
broth. It's
wrong.
the broth. It's not the actual meat. It's just the broth that that you cook it in.
Right.
So yeah, I was just leafing through here, and I came up upon it, and yeah,
Proteins, carbohydrates, and sugars. Well, carbs are sugars, but yeah, it's insane what they can do.
Wow.
Hey, Stinky, Jimmy with the neutrons. He had a question here. He says, was that the intention to not domesticate the mushroom? I'm not sure.
With pollock, no, I think it was that they in like they thought mushrooms uh would same thing like with the whole Nixon era. They thought it would make people not want to go to work, make people speak for themselves and speak up, and the if we took something out of nature and turned into something else, it we'd probably see a lot of bad things happen with that. Yeah, this probably there's really not much. I mean, there's steroids for mushrooms that you could give them to make them bigger and to grow better. They have the same type of uh, response to those things as we do.
That's amazing. You said you had something else you wanted to share?
Uh,
Or was that? You have anything else you'd like to share?
let me see. Let me see.
Bring out that
I
book of
did.
knowledge.
I had 2 pages here that I wrote down a little bit before. Um, yeah, no, just the fact that what helped me was what got me to the next level was help from a complete stranger. And I want everyone listening who's gonna listen to know, like, don't don't overlook people. Don't ever feel like uh, don't misjudge people. Don't misjudge yourself, and that we could accomplish amazing things just by talking, just by having a conversation, just by sharing a little bit about each other, and a little bit about yourself with everybody. And this bye, yeah. But yeah, that's it.
Jimmy just Brown Treasure says Stinky for president. Jimmy has a
Man.
question. He says Milo versus Rye. What do you think?
Uh, I'm gonna have to go with Milo. I like rye. It's just rye seems to be a little bit of a harder to hydrate and basically have everything the same. There's yeah, there's a Milo's a little bit more expensive, I think, than rye. And it depends on the quality of grains you get too. You don't want any grains that are old, dusty, have sticks and stones in them, or have other things. I think rye always tends to have those just because of the type of grain it's grown for. And Milo is a little bit better because it's smaller and it's less. It's not hollow. Like rye has a shell into a nice small seed, and there's a lot of. It's not like a solid grain as you would. It's like how uh, like a pea instead of a pea stalk. That makes
Yeah, I've had
sense.
a 50 pound bag of rye grains just sitting downstairs for I don't know, maybe 5 6 months now. I just use millet now. I'm on the millet train.
The white millet,
Yeah,
white
white millet. Yeah, it,
sorghum.
it does get quite expensive though. Like you were saying, it's like just over $1 a pound. So it gets quite expensive. But
Yeah, it definitely works. I'll say this for basically going to bulk is that I use millet when I'm going grain to grain, just because even if I'm inoculating the millet with liquid culture or agar, I will always use millet for grain to grain or a smaller grain just because of the inoculation points. So if I go grain to grain with oats, the oats are bigger, and I'm gonna have to put more oats in the grain bag for it to colonize faster. Where with millet, the same amount of oats they'll have per pound will have so many more pieces because it's so small.
You've been speaking a little bit about grain to grain. I know it's a simple process and stuff, but maybe some people don't really, have the gist or maybe wondering what it is. What do you think? What is the best route to do a grain to grain?
Uh,
I know it's
it all it all goes to more mushrooms. So you buy, let's say you buy a syringe, a spore syringe. You only have one syringe. You take that syringe, you go to grains, colonizes the grains, clean, healthy, white. Now you can take those grains and go to substrate, grow your mushrooms out. But then you're gonna need agar for a clone, or you need to make liquid culture for the clone. But with grain to grain, you can just go and take, instead of going to substrate, just go to more grain, and just a little bit. You don't need much. You don't need much to go to grain to grain, and it basically keeps everything the same. So let's say I have this one phenotype from this person, and it's their isolation. I once I once I inoculate my grains, I'm not making liquid culture for this specific variety unless I plan on uh, using it, selling it, or whatever. But I usually don't. If I have something, I'll let's say I get a plate. I'll take that plate. I'll cut it in the quarters. Uh, each quarter, 3 quarters of that will go to 3 different grain jars, and I'll save that last quarter on the plate. I'll wrap it back up. I'll stick it in a sandwich baggie or a Ziploc or a vacuum seal. Stick it in the fridge, and and then 2 of those grain jars will go fully colonized. I will put those 2 grain jars, if they're clean, those will go to more grain bags or more grain jars. But that one, well, the one out of the 3 will go to substrate. So I have more, by the time my grains are fully colonized and ready for more substrate, I will have the outcome. I'll have the fruits. I'll have the flush, and I'll have like the actual visible the visible growth of those grains right in front of me. So I'm like, oh, and now I know that these grains that it went to grain with is is a representation of those fruits. So it's kind of like having the seeing the future of those grains right in front of you.
And how many like what's it called? Synapsis, or there's a name for it. How many transfers do you feel that you can do until you start losing like genetics, or there's a name for it, synapsis or senescence, I believe it is. Do you know what I'm
I have
referring to?
no idea. I
Like
think so.
like yeah, like the more you transfer, like say you did 50 transfers from like you take a culture, you put it on a plate, you transfer the same culture again and again and again and again, like over and over repeatedly. Do you feel that it's going to start losing any I guess any of the genetics? Like it weakens it gets weaker and weaker as you go along, or you think that's not an issue? Have you heard that? Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Synesis?
I I
I
didn't
think that's
I didn't know that there was a term for it.
yeah, I think I could be wrong. I think that's what it is. It's called senescence or something like I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that's it. As the more you
Uh,
transfer, the weaker the genetics become.
yeah. See, that's I'm not too certain. A few people have told me from RW's stuff, Roger Rabbit stuff, that he said eight grain and grains, and then you start seeing a little bit of a difference. But I mean, 8 times, so that's 16 weeks. That's 3 months. So you can transfer grains for 3 months to fresh grains without having any issues. That's that's a quarter of a year.
Yeah,
That's a long time to keep something pretty stable and fruiting every week. Every 2 weeks you'll have fruits. You'll have more grain that's colonized, And all you have to do is sprinkle a little bit of grain into new grain. No cultures, no agar, none of that. And it's honestly saved me so much time that I have to really, you know, be an advocate for it. And if the issue is, let's say you have that first grain to grain, take that grain jar, put it in the fridge after it's colonized. So in 3 months, if you start noticing any differences, you can just take that original grain jar and start over again.
There you go. That's thinking outside the box, man.
Yeah. Well, we're dealing with this infinite organism that all around the world, every single day, it's growing, it's breathing, it's evolving. We get to play with it and do some of this advancement ourselves. Well, we don't do it ourselves, but we help it along by doing it. And I've I don't think I've been uh like turned away from my psyllium has never turned me away from doing anything with it. It's always been accepting of when I want to work with it. It's always been acceptance of how and what I want to do with it. So it's really a beautiful giving thing that we get to do. And grain to grain seems like for a lot of new people jumping into it, a lot of beginners jumping into it, that it'll save them a lot of the mistakes of cooking and sterilizing cultures and buying agar plates uh, everyone should do that. If you're going to get into it. But if you're not trying to get into it, like spend hundreds of dollars buying things and doing things, then grain to grain is, from somebody who's spent the money and spent the time. I've This is the easiest way. The grain method that I talked about, it's pretty cheap. There's no, crazy. I cook all my grain at night, so I'll hydrate my grain at 8 o'clock at night. The next morning, after I take my kid to school, I'll go to work. I'll prep my grains, sterilize them. So I'm really only working with my grains for 2.5 hours. I just add water and grain and cook them for half an hour the night before. So it's pretty nice to have a routine too. If you always have a routine when you're doing grains, and I've seen someone earlier said, "Oh, I fell asleep while sterilizing grains." They sterilized the grains for 4 hours, and it's like, holy shit! Like, I would be so mad at myself, and I'm pretty sure if I told the missus, she'd be like, "Why? I'm mad at you now too." Fucking
Not only could you, well, if you're using a pressure cooker, blow your house up, or you're burning all the water out of your pressure cooker. I've done it. Not falling asleep, burned all the water out. And I just bought the brand new pressure cooker too. I just got the thing with the gauge because I was using one without a gauge. First use, I filled it up like I normally did, but I didn't realize I was running it at, I think it was like 17 or 18 psi. So I
oh
burned more
wow,
water at the time, not realizing it. And I warped the bottom of my pressure cooker, and it still works. I still use it constantly. I mean, it still works, but yeah, you got to be careful.
yeah, yeah, and it's not a mistake that you want to do more than once. That's for If you don't learn from it the first time, you're definitely gonna get a bit in the ass the second time.
Yeah, I think they say I think more water is better. Your bags might sit in a little bit of water, but a little more water is better than not enough water. That's for sure.
Oh, especially when you're venting. If you're venting your PC for that 7 to 10 minutes, even if you're, and this is hydrating grains, this is making agar, this is making liquid culture, this is sterilizing your grain bags or your grain jars. If you vent for 10 minutes like you're supposed to, you got to make sure you add enough water for that burn off. Because if you're letting that vent for 10 minutes and it's pissing out steam, let's say that's a half quart to a quart of water that it's already down before you even put the weight on. So more is better than less in that aspect,
Absolutely.
definitely.
I usually let mine go for about 15 to 20 minutes sometimes. I just want to make sure all the air's out, make sure there's no I just watch the steam to make sure it's not sputtering or if I see air coming out or so.
Yeah, and
But
you want whatever's in there to be at the hottest. You want that to be at the temperature of the inside. Everything the same temperature. So if you just put your weight on from go, that stuff inside there, your grain jars, your grain bags, your LC, your agar, it's not gonna it's not gonna cook and sterilize at that time that you want because it's not at the temperature that you need it to be. So that venting actually helps bring the temperature of what you're trying to sterilize up. It makes everything, it helps bring everything to the same hot temperature and not, once this hits 15 psi, you think everything in there is at 250. That's not the case. The center of those grain bags, center of those grain jars, they have to stay, they're slowly making that climb up. That vent helps raise the temperature, putting it, instead of having it on high, full blast the whole time until it hits 15, slowly get to 15. Get to 15 psi nice and smoothly. If you rush it, you end up with more issues. That's definitely something I've learned a few times, more than a few times.
yeah, since I know it's going to be kind of hard to explain, and it's probably better with pictures, but I was going to ask you how do you stack your pressure cooker when you're doing you do bags, correct?
Yes.
Is there a proper way that you think they should be stacked, like when you're putting the bags in, say 3 layers high?
Yeah. So filter patch always facing in, never out.
In,
And
like you mean
yeah,
towards the
so
center, right?
so you want the filter patch to be folded onto the bag. So basically, so it's not exposed to the outside.
Trying to visualize. Yeah, I see.
So
Okay.
so let's say the bag's full of grain, right? You
Yeah.
you you pack your grain down a little bit, bang it on the table, you flatten it out, you squeeze the bag, you pinch the bag, you push all the air out of the bag, right? And the filter patch is looking at you. Right? You want to fold that filter patch onto the bag, and not have the filter patch out facing the world. So you want the filter patch to be in and not out, so
So
that
you don't
the
want no way. So the patch is like touching the plastic, like the patch is on the plastic.
yep, exactly.
I've been doing this wrong the whole time. I thought it was supposed to be facing inside, like towards the center of the pressure cooker.
Nope, nope. You want them to
So
be
you want
in.
it facing inside towards the grain bag.
Yep, and you got to make
Like,
sure try to get all of the air out of that bag before you fold it and flap it down like that, because that's what's going to cause your bags to pop. Is trapped air. When I say trapped air, I mean trapped cold air. That's what's going to make your bag swell when it's decompressing. When you're coming down from the pressure, if there's trapped air inside those bags, they're going to swell and pop because of the pressure. So as long as there's no air in those bags, you should be good. Another thing
does that
too is when you don't have to worry about bags melting if your PC doesn't it has enough water in it. If there isn't enough water in it, the temperature is going to get too high, and it's going to melt the fuck. It's going to melt those bags. It's pure and simple. Uh, those bags will melt in your oven at about 180 degrees. That plastic melts at 180 degrees inside the oven because it's dry. But in the PC, it can sustain the temperatures because it's steam heat, not dry heat. The other thing I've learned.
I I can't believe it, man. I've always put my,
Yeah.
my my filter patches to the outside into the center of the pressure cooker. I mean, it hasn't caused me any problems though. I'm gonna try it the other way now. So I'm gonna wrap the patch in towards the bag instead of facing
Yep.
out. Would that stop? Because I've been buying my bags off Amazon, and some of them they kind of look like the filter's kind of melting a little bit. Not like it still pushes air through it and stuff, but maybe because of cheap bags or whatever it is. Do you think that would help with the melting?
Uh, No, I don't think that might help. It's if you're getting your
It's
bags
just
off Amazon, it could just be the
yeah,
plastic they're using.
that's what I
A
think
lot
too.
of
Yeah, that's
a
what
lot of
I
the
figured.
times, if your bags are melting or popping, or melting specifically, uh, you could wrap your bags in a little bit of foil, or line your PC with foil, or get one of those brewer bags and throw your grain bags in a basically line your PC with a brew bag and then stick your grain bags inside of the brew bag and then close that brew bag. It's another way I've seen a few people do it if when they're having issues. It's tough. Sometimes the grow bags are super expensive, and you can't afford to buy a box or 100 of them. So Amazon has the best cheapest alternatives, and they do work. Man, I have used so if you ever go to Walmart or Target or any Dollar Tree, dollar store, or wherever, they have these little plastic goodie bags, doggy bags, what they call them. But they're for parties. You put like a lollipop, some candy in it, and you tie it up. They're very fragile. They're not thick. They're not meant for heat at all in any way. And I use these bags for months. And that's before I heard of. That's before I used uh, mushroom spawn bags or mushroom fruiting bags. I used the cheapest Dollar Tree uh, goody doggy bags that I could find. And what actually worked was wrapping them in a layer or two of foil and then PCing them in the foil. And hey, sometimes the bags would melt, sometimes they would pop, but I would just tape it back over and inoculate. And sometimes it's all, if that's the only thing left you have to do, you have to take that step and see where it gets you. So you just want to keep throwing stuff out. That's the worst feeling.
Yeah, I haven't had any problems with the bags melting. It's mostly like the filters look like they're kind of like wrinkling up, and it just looks weird. Like I haven't had really any problems with the bags themselves. But yeah, I was just so what would be the difference then if the filter was facing out towards the center of the thing the pressure cooker or folded over touching the plastic? Does it
Uh,
you think it makes a
for
difference?
just perspective, it's just so that the filter patch doesn't want to. You don't want to get it wet. You don't want to get it wet. And if it's gonna pop or blow out of anywhere, it's gonna be the filter patch.
Okay.
That's might be the weakest spot other than the actual opening because the seals in the bottom of the bags they're pretty strong.
Well, next time I run
I
grain, I'm gonna flip them around and I'm gonna put the filter touching the plastic and see if maybe that helps with the filter a little bit. Maybe the filter's getting wet from the what like what do you call that? Not condensation. What would you call vapor water? What would you call that? Anyway.
steam the steam.
Yeah, that's it. Steam. I had a brain fart there. Yeah, steam. Maybe it's getting wet from the steam and it's cooking the whatever the filter's made of, the plastic or I don't know,
The
but I'm
adhesive
gonna give that a try.
stuff.
I've been doing this for what 9 months now, the same way the whole time, and I just learned something new. So thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Give it a shot. And that's the way I've been doing it. I've seen some people put basically a Tyvek sleeve inside of the gusset and then folding that down so that they don't swell or pop. But I've never really had significant issues dealing with that because and once you figure out what you're doing wrong, it's not that hard to fix it and prevail over it.
That's it. It's all about the knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
If
And
what is it? Geeky said this the other day. He was like, "You fall." He said, "It's like one of his favorite quotes or something." He said, "You fall 7 times, but you get up 8."
yeah,
I
he's
was
a good
like,
guy,
"Oh
Mike.
shit!" I'm like, "You actually do get up 8 times if you fall 7."
Hey, you learn something new. Yeah, he's He's been helping me along quite a bit with the serial dilution and stuff, the with the microscope and stuff like that. He's a good guy, Michael Geek. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's a good guy. You in a server?
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
He's
well,
there's a there's good people in these communities, man, and that's that's one thing that from the beginning I didn't have a community or people doing this. It was pretty much me, myself, and YouTube. Probably like a lot of people, just YouTube, and that's it. That's YouTube and themselves are the only people they know grow mushrooms. People on YouTube, and that's it.
yeah,
Once you
I
start
got
being in
I got
communities,
I got quite lucky with this. You know, like as soon as I started, I got into a good community and Discord. I think Discord is coming a long way now. You know, for this community.
oh yeah, definitely. There's a there's oh, God. I mean, yeah, I told you Reddit was where I kind of found some help at first, but then it just you know there's there's community and then there's people saying what they think and not what they know. A lot of people don't know what they're saying. They're just speaking out of what they read on somewhere other page or some other person's issue.
Google. Hey, that's I find that too. There's just a lot of people you ask a question, and the only time I'll ever answer a question is if I've experienced it myself, or like I know somebody has told me something that I know is has been around and done it, and I don't ever go to Google and try to answer a question. If I don't know, I don't know, and that's just how I am.
Oh yeah, if someone asks me a question and I don't know it, I'll go to Google and I'll try to find out the answer for them because uh, something that if I don't know it, then I should try to know it. If it's relating a problem that I like, let's say it's someone that I'm helping or I care about or care for, they have an issue, a problem, I'm gonna take that as my own problem and try to fix it and try to help in any way I can. So it's good. If
But
I
how do you
don't
know
know
what you're
ever.
reading on Google? How do you know if that's really like, you know, like if you're reading something on somebody else's forum, or like how do you know the information that they're posting is accurate? I mean, it would be to your best knowledge, right? Like something that you would assume would be right if you haven't experienced it, kind of.
Oh, I'm I dig. I dig. I'm a digger. I'll find uh I'll find answers. So I'll ask those questions to the right people to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, that's another big thing that the communities that we're in is that uh, the community is what there's a hub of information, a hub of knowledge, and if there isn't that in a community, then what? It's not really a community. It's just a hangout spot. So
Well,
if if I take someone's problem or issue seriously and I try to find them answers, I'm gonna try to find them answers through everybody I know. There's a few people that have, oh man, just on this Discord page alone, there's probably over 100 or over like 150 years of combined cultivation knowledge. So it's fucking there definitely is answers to these problems, answers to these questions. If I don't know it, I know someone definitely will.
yep. And that's the amazing part. Like you're saying, that's the amazing part about these communities, man. So we just all got to stick together and progress.
Yeah, I was ecstatic when you asked me to be on here. Um, you know, I do this for the people that need my help. People, not just my help, just help in general. Like it doesn't have to be from me. I could just share something that might help somebody. And uh, this is what I do. This is what I feel like is my passion. Uh, it helps me get through hard times. It helps me even when I'm having good times. It helps me, afford my bills in a sense. It you said it helped you with alcoholism, and I could say the same. I could say the same. It gives you a lot of self reflection when you're doing this, and especially when you eat the fruits.
Yeah, now we just have to get the what would you call it? Not the community, the society, I guess you could say. They just have to learn the truth and what's really going on, and not just what the government wants people to hear and stuff like that. Like, there was an article I was reading in a newspaper about here in Canada. They some a gentleman was dying from cancer, and he was taking mushrooms, and they stopped it. They said you can't do this no more, and now he's suing them. He's suing the government because they told him he can't have his mushroom treatment no more. I mean, why would they do that to the guy? He's got cancer. You know, it's just it's out of control. But what are you gonna do? That's the government, right? So,
Yeah, that they I don't think that's at all. I mean, there's a whole movement going on right now that if it's natural medicine, no one should be able to tell you you cannot grow it or ingest it for yourself and for, for pain, for belief, for uh, for a sacrament. Like no one should be able to tell you what you can and can't do with natural growing, uh, with anything, natural growing organisms. Like if I had an apple tree in my yard and you told me that I couldn't eat the apples from it, I would tell you that you're crazy.
I
But
was thinking the same thing when I was reading it. Not about the apple tree, just about who can tell. Like, how can they tell you what you can and cannot eat? You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, um, man, all the pot shops, all the CBD oils, all the farms. 20 years ago, there was people getting arrested, sentenced 10, 15 years for simple possession, and now we're not even a quarter century away from that time, and now it's like, oh yeah, all you got to be is 18. Oh, all you got to be is 21. You don't even need a doctor's note anymore. And I remember that was a huge thing. Companies made millions upon millions of dollars distributing these marijuana medical licenses and medical cards. And then a year or two later goes on, you don't even need a medical card. You just need to be an adult. It's just, it's, I don't know. It's just, it's weird how capitalism can change the rights of people, especially free rights, like it's the rights that uh, the like the earth you're born into. Those not even God given, but the earth given right to breathe, to eat, to think. Like those are things that we cannot just let other people take away from us, or governments or individuals take away from us. I couldn't find mushrooms, so I grew them myself. If I
That's
if
the
I
way.
couldn't, yeah, exactly.
Now up here in Canada, we have all these dispensaries coming out, and like we have online dispensaries. I don't know how it is for other places, but here it's kind of seeming to relax. They're trying to follow the same route as like you were saying, the marijuana industry, but I don't think it's not going to go that way. I think it's going to just stay illegal, and but only time will tell
Well,
because big pharma is going to want.
there's a
Go ahead.
lab in Canada that um, someone was just talking about or posted a video about it, but they have the ability to grow 1,800 kilos every single month of psilocybin mushrooms, cubensis mushrooms, and
That is crazy.
they literally they word for word said it is enough for the whole world. We
That's
can grow
amazing.
enough for the whole world right here in this, let's say it's a 10,000, 20,000 square foot place, 30,000 foot square place. And they can grow enough to supply the world. And they have these places in Jamaica. Jamaica has the largest spore library on the planet. This lab in Jamaica, and there's a lot of things going on there that are next level like sciencey things, and Can, Canada's on the forefront of the legalization and the decriminalization. But man, in Jamaica, it's like real. Like they're not worried about uh, litigation and politics. They're in for it for the science. Like that, there's certain labs that, oh, we can, like he said, we can supply enough for the world. It's like that's not. Are you a scientist or are you a farmer? Like, what is there? Are you playing politics or are you playing the the capitalist? Are you for it or are you for profit for it? There's certain aspects of, like, when we look at it as medicine, we look at it as uh, in a way to understand oneself and their surroundings, bring us back to uh, this blissfulness that we have in our everyday lives that we don't get to enjoy. You know, psilocybin and psilocin, DMT, uh, THC. Uh, they all bring out this energy inside of us that we have. We already have the ability to communicate with these chemicals. Our body has the ability to communicate with these chemicals, and we shouldn't be taken away from that. And that's what's been going on for the last 100, 200 years has been taken away from these natural things that our bodies communicate, that our body can actually communicate with.
Facts.
We have
And that's like
Jimmy with the
exactly.
neutrons
What up,
would
bro?
like to speak. How's it going, man?
I'm doing all right. I just had a question about the Jamaica thing, but I want to touch on what Stinky was just talking about. Like, all right, let me go back to the Jamaica thing. The Jamaica thing, is it Pharma that controls the labs down there, or is it like a private company? Like, what's going on down there with the Sport Laboratory lab in Jamaica?
It's a private lab, and I think it's run by uh, some type of foundation, but it's supposed to be it's supposed to be top of the line. Like if you wanted to order spores from this place, I think
Yeah,
you could.
facts.
Yeah,
That's, yeah,
I'm
I'm finna get on.
almost. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is.